Hi and welcome back to JST. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Marianna and I bring you video mostly about Japan and travel, sometimes also about anthropology and cultural anthropology. So today I will talk again about something that I anticipated somehow, which is shamanism. But this time I will talk about shamanism in Japan and the blind shaman of the north. The reason I talk about this is because this was the main topic of my thesis, so it's something that I studied, read about, talked about. I mean, it's something that I really dived into. So I'm fairly confident of what I say, and despite the fact that it's a very particular and very specialistic topic, a very niche in the Japanese studies and shamanistic studies too. It's very interesting because it offers a little hint and input and some inspiration for Japanese culture in its widest interpretation and on shamanism itself. In my research I talked about and I wrote about itako. Itako are a kind of female shamans, a folk practitioner, better called, that work in the Tohoku area, in particular in Aomori-ken, so in the northern of the Tohoku prefecture. There are lots of different names when we refer to blind shamans in Japan, blind folk practitioner in Japan, and the majority of these practices seems to be concentrated in Tohoku. So in any prefecture like in Akita, Iwate, even Fukushima, all around the area you can find different names for the same kind of practitioners. So you may find Waga, Ichigo, Idago. Sometimes they may change a little bit, Ogami-sama. The subject is the same and they represent the same type of practitioner. The use of the word shaman is not always easy, and this is one of the area in which sometimes is suggested and is the best practice to keep the original name while talking about this practitioner, because the word shamans or shamanism implies a very huge debate. So when we say shaman, we may have an idea in mind of what we are talking about, but usually it's not so easy to have the reality that fits that idea. So for example, we can talk about shamanism in Siberia, so shaman in Siberia is a perfect fitting of the type of figure that you are meeting there. But if you use the word in some other area of the planet, the things get complicated. So I use shaman sometimes, but the notion of shaman implies some particular debate that I will link here so that maybe you will have a little insight. So moving on from this brief chit-chat about the terms, let's move on. In the traditional studies, itako are considered to be folk practitioners, female almost exclusively, that have the peculiarity of being blind. According to the definition, itako is a woman that becomes a folk practitioner because she is blind. This is a very interesting element of the debate because sometimes itako have been included in the field of shamanism and sometimes they didn't, just because of this element, the fact that they become practitioners and therefore they become shamans, not for a particular call from the spirit or for a vocation or because their parents were shamans, but because they needed to. So there is a very practical choice, a very basic need behind that choice. Itako are widespread in a particular area of Japan, which is the Tohoku, and in that area agriculture was the main way to survive. So in each and every family, every member of the family had to work in order to bring food home. Being blind, a woman cannot do that, could not do that at least. Blindness was a huge deal because the woman could not go to school, could not work properly, and easily could not marry well. So we have a very specific background, which is a very agricultural background and not so wealthy, and people had to work, no matter the gender. So in such a background, in order not to be a burden for the family, a blind girl had to do something with herself, and one of the most suggested things that she could do was in fact to become itako. The choice to become itako was often taken when the blind girl herself was very young, so it was something that the family decided for her, and sometimes the entire community, so the entire neighborhood, decided for her. And they have also a collection of money in order to pay the older itako that would become the master. Once the young girl entered the training, she would leave her parents' house and move into the itako house, so into the master's house, and there she would learn every day some chants or prayers or songs, ritual songs, and she would learn step by step all the different rituals that in the past, especially itako, were supposed to offer to the community. Aside from learning, the young girl would also help the older itako in their everyday life. So she would become a sort of servant for the older practitioner. Usually the training would take place in 5 years, so a very long period of time, sometimes less, sometimes more, depending on the practitioner's ability. After this training, there would be a ritual moment, so an initiation moment, in which the practitioner symbolically died to come back as the final itako. After that, she would then start her own profession, and she would practice and offer all the rituals that she learned during the apprenticeship. Clearly this was very intense practice, was very intense life. She couldn't write because she was blind, so she would have to remember by heart everything that the master told her. So it was a very demanding life, and she had to training in the morning, very early in the morning, with cold water, so very, very intense training. So what itako do? What did they do in reality? In the local areas, itako were renowned mainly for 2 or 3 things that they do. First of all, they were healers. So people would go there to have their pain fixed. Medical care was an option usually, and even if it was, often people prefer to visit itako instead of the local doctor. The second ritual by which they were popular usually is called kami-oroshi, and it's a ritual in which the itako talks with the kami in order to assure the welfare of the whole community, a good harvest, for example. Finally, the third ritual for which they are known is the communication with the spirits of the dead. This ritual is called kuchiyose, and it's a moment in which the spirit of the deceased is called back into the body of the itako, and therefore he or she is allowed to talk with their relatives. This is the picture that you will find in books. When you see the reality, something is changing, something is shifting from that picture. Nowadays, blindness is not so widespread, so there are very few people blind from birth or a very young age, because the medical care has developed and is more widespread. At the same time, there are more choices for all the people that are blind, and so they can afford to go to school, they can find a job, they can find lots of different services that will allow them to choose their own future. So it's clear that for a blind girl and for a blind woman, to become itako is not necessarily the only option that they have. And on the other side, when I went on the fieldwork, I could see that while a lot of the older itako were in fact blind, few of the younger ones could see, and they choose to become itako for different reasons, such as vocation, a call, a need for gratitude, maybe for a particular path in their lives. It's very clear that the profession is changing, and the reason behind that profession are also changing. At the same time, it's interesting to see how also the rituals are changing, because if in the past healing was one of the main reasons to visit an itako, today the number one reason is the communication with the dead. So you go to an itako mainly and foremost because you want to talk to, I don't know, your grandparents, your father, your mother that dies a long time ago. You want to get in touch again with a member of your family that is no longer here. So that's the main reason today to visit an itako. And that's also the main reason why they are quite popular in televisions and in newspaper, because they are associated with a new occult boom, the new trend, a new revival for everything that is occult, mysterious. So they are often associated with locations and places around the country that are very popular because of this connection with the world of the dead. So, for example, itako are today often associated with Osore-san, which is probably one of the most famous mountains all around Japan, because it's the Hell Mountain, and it's in Aomori-ken, in the Shimokita Peninsula, which is the last piece of Honshu before you enter Hokkaido. I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on a lot on this topic, but I think that for a little taste of the itako world this can be it. And of course there are lots of variation and lots of different similar profession in the area in Aomori, but also all around Japan. So this is a very fascinating topic, and also the connection with the world of the death is evolving, and it's something that I think it's quite interesting to study in order to understand also the community of the living. So if you enjoyed the topic and if you enjoyed the video, thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, I would love if you do. And I hope I can talk to you soon about Japan travel, Japanese culture, maybe shamans. And thanks for watching, and I talk to you soon. Bye!